Morning, everyone. Morning. I know everyone's muted, so you can't say good morning back, but hopefully everyone can hear me. Thank you very much for joining today. I see we've got a good turnout, or we will have. I think people are still coming in quite quickly. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Everyone's muted for now. Please, you can still put any kind of questions in the chat group, and you can, and at the end, we'll open the floor to questions and answers. It's a bit difficult, while I go to have question and answers. So it's better to put them in the chat group. We will answer them. There's some of our team members on the call as well, so they'll answer those. And then at the end, we'll open the floor, and you can go mad and ask questions. My name's Jonathan Crisp. I'm one of the directors at BarnOwl. So thank you very much for attending today. We are recording the session. There are also PowerPoint slides which we'll make available to everyone. It will be on our website as well. So hopefully sit back and enjoy the presentation and what we've been doing for the last couple of years. Well, version 11's actually been in the making for 2 years now, actually, and and if I don't say so myself, it's looking hell of a good. So let me get into it and just do a brief introduction as to what version 11's all about, a little bit around all the new exciting reporting features we've got, that you've got access to, from Power BI to SSRS to some built-in reports, and also then how to get upgraded. It is quite a major upgrade if you're a risk user. So we'll get into that a little bit in terms of training and things like that. Thanks. I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm actually going to turn my camera off. And hopefully everyone can see that. Cheryl, just stop me if you can't see it.
No, we can see.
Okay, great, good. All right, so the agenda for today, an introduction, a little bit about what we now call BarnOwl Desktop, which is the rich, and BarnOwl Web. We no longer are using the word BarnOwl Lite, because BarnOwl Web is not light anymore. It's actually very rich. So we'll then go through the features. The focus is version 11.2. Version 11.1 was released in February 2023. I can't believe it's already 2024, but we've now really got a lot of what we used to call the rich features are now sitting in the BarnOwl web version in version 11.2, which version 11.2 we've been doing final testing. It's actually on version 11.2.6 at the moment, because we have these minor releases, and but it is going to go out to market within the next 2 weeks, I would say. We're just doing final sign off in our environment. It's been extensive testing. So the main areas that we've worked on, 11.1 covered all the risk registers, all the standard registers, and version 11.2 is now incorporates all the new look and feel and functionality for surveys, questionnaires, the voting, the risk self-assessments, control self-assessments, and we've done major changes to key indicators, key risk indicators, key performance indicators, key control indicators, to include financial periods, which is especially useful for the public sector. They use the key indicators extensively, which is great. And obviously financial years run from April to March, or if you're a municipality, from July to June. So those key indicator financial periods are very useful. Great. Just an introduction, just to sort of get us all on the page. These are the main modules of BarnOwl. There's risk management, there's compliance, and there's internal audit. And then part of risk management, you've got incident management. We call it performance management. That's really all around KPIs, key risk indicators, and key control indicators, which is my pet hobby horse, because that's what brings risk management to life. It's real measures uh, linked to your controls to give you reassessment triggers, and linked to your risks, and also linked to your objectives. There's the workshop module, which with keypads, lots of our clients use that. It's very effective. BarnOwl Lite is now no longer, as I say, this slide will be changed because it's no longer BarnOwl Lite. We call it BarnOwl Web. And then there is still the open license, which is a free license for users to be able to respond to action plans, respond to risk and control self-assessments, and respond to surveys. And there's the standard reporting module, and then we've done a huge amount of work on the business intelligence front, both from the warehouse perspective, but a lot of clients use our business intelligence now, which connects directly to the database, and therefore, doesn't have a delay of waiting for the warehouse to be updated. So it's basically with a simple refresh, you get your Power BI reports immediately. Although there are things you can do in the warehouse. It's obviously for very advanced, more advanced business intelligence reporting. So just as part of the introduction, these are the types of user and what we call a BarnOwl user interface. In other words, how do you interface with BarnOwl? So we have, and this is all related now to in context of version 11. So we've got the traditional admin user. You've got server management console. That's what SMC stands for there. And you've also got functions in what we used to call risk management rich. We now call it, basically, we're calling it the desktop app. It's just to more clarification. And so the administrator still will work on the desktop app. And it's almost like one-off tasks where you set up processes, your org structure. You still use the desktop app, which is the rich version, to set up votes, import compliance acts. But the next level down, the risk champions will use BarnOwl Web. It's a far nicer interface. It's far faster. I'll get into why you would want to use BarnOwl Web, but it's really, as I put in brackets, it's no longer BarnOwl Lite. So it's got extensive functionality. So the risk champions, we would advise to move and use BarnOwl Web. If you've got a rich license or desktop license, you automatically have a BarnOwl Web license. And then our traditional light licenses are now going to be called BarnOwl Web licenses. But risk champions would use the BarnOwl Web interface. The compliance champions actually could use a combination of the two, because a lot of the compliance, the CRMPs, for example, compliance risk management plans, are basically risk registers. So you could use BarnOwl Web, but a lot of the compliance champions will continue to use the BarnOwl desktop app. So these are just different windows into the system. Audit is still very much a BarnOwl desktop app. We do hope that in time, and it's a massive undertaking, and a big job is to get the audit module into the web, but that's a very long process. So for now, because audit is a complex module, and there's a lot to it. So, and also supports online and offline. So there's a lot to think about in audit. So audit will carry on using the BarnOwl desktop app. We've then got, as I mentioned that previous slide, we've got the open license user. Those are basically for people to use the BarnOwl web open license to respond to action plans, respond to RSAs, CSAs, surveys, questionnaires, as well as to capture key indicator inputs if they're the owners on those. So that just sets the scene of people sometimes get a bit confused. It's really version 11 is a different window, a very fancy window basically into the system. BarnOwl desktop app is tried and tested and like the tractor, and the BarnOwl web is like the Porsche, but all heading towards the same shopping center, as it were, which is the database sitting in the center. So hopefully that explains how things fit together. As I say, I've gone through some of this. There's the BarnOwl desktop app. There's the BarnOwl web app now. And the reason to use the web app is, one, it is a very clean-cut user interface. You'll see it's got simplified navigation. I mean, the rich version is, I must get used to the new terminology, our BarnOwl desktop version is it's busy. It's quite complicated because you can open and expand all your registers. It kind of shows you all the fields. So it can get, if you know it well, it's quite easy, but it can get a bit overwhelming. So the web interface has, if you look down on that list, it's got risk on a page. So almost you can see your simple risk register or objective register. We're also going to be adding a controls register separately, but you can, the key is the risk register. You open a risk and then you can see very easily, you can drill down into the areas of that risk without being overwhelmed by seeing everything in one go. Version 11.2, then what we've been working on is significant changes to surveys. You'll see we've really added some nice things to surveys. So, the compliance guys use surveys extensively, but we've got more and more people, even partners, looking for risk maturity surveys they want to send out, and it looks good, and it's extensive. We've also done a lot of work on CSAs, RSAs, and key indicators. The other reason for BarnOwl Web, which is a major thing, is the performance enhancements. So with desktop, what's happening is essentially the system is running on your notebook, and it has to talk to the server to get all the data down onto your notebook to then process it. So the BarnOwl desktop is not ideal for VPN. VPNs can be slow. It works. The BarnOwl desktop works very well in a LAN, a local area network. But now with after COVID and that, a lot of people work from home and work on VPNs, so it can be a bit slow. And the BarnOwl web is essentially all the work is being done on the server, the app server and the database server. They sit together, and all the processing and all the work is actually done on the server, and it's just sending you down the screenshots basically of the results. So it's a far faster and easier user interface. But certainly from a performance perspective, it works incredibly well, even on poor networks. And you're not going to get a timeout or anything like that. Reporting, as you know, it's also my pet hobby. Yours is you spend a lot of effort putting data into the system. And what you want to do is you want to get information out of the system, and you want the information to make sense and to look good and to be presentable. So in version 11.2, we've got BarnOwl query reporting. We've had it for quite some time, but we are basically getting more and more reports, built-in reports into the web interface. And what's quite nice with that query reporting is that we would be able to, we add standard queries, but we can actually tweak those queries and have multiple different kinds of queries for different customers. Generally, any customization is quoted for and is billable. So I just want to make that pretty clear. But the BarnOwl reporting comes with a huge amount of standard Power BI dashboards now in risk voting surveys, compliance audits directly off the database. We've still got the warehouse, but you can now get these Power BI dashboards directly off the database. And we are doing more and more SSRS. That stands for SQL Server Reporting Services. Again, we have some standard reports, but a lot of our customers, we develop highly customized reports for them at a cost. It does cost them because it does take time and it's a lot of work. But more and more we will have standard reports, and we can then probably, you should be able to get 80 to 90% of your reporting requirements out of the standard reports. So I'll just show you a little bit of that later. Version 11.2, as I mentioned, we've done a lot of work on surveys. I will send these PowerPoint presentations to everyone, and they will be on our website. We've got a new look and feel for questionnaires. People don't know about, a lot of our clients don't even know. We've got the questionnaires built in to BarnOwl. They've been there since day one. They really are, surveys are more yes, no's, or a 1 to 5 scale, strongly agree, this, that. Questionnaires have, drop-down boxes, free text, and really, really powerful. I'll show you an example of that later on in the presentation. We've done a huge amount of work on control self-assessment, where with control self-assessment, a lot of our clients use CSAs. It's a great way of getting buy-in for risk management out into the organization. So in BarnOwl, you can easily set up, send out a control self-assessment to control owners across 500 business units, 1,000 users if you wanted to, and the system, you can set a recurrence date. So we've got clients that will have a monthly CSA, a quarterly CSA, and those will automatically be created by the system, send them out to the users, and the users then have a start date, end date, and if there's a reviewer, there's a review date, and those surveys then, or basically CSAs, are completed by the control owner. And the reason for that is, if you've got an audit department and you've got 20 or 30 auditors, they can't get to everything all the time in a massive organization, and they really are assurance providers. So the ownership for controls and risks sits with management, or the process owners in those particular areas. So the idea is to get the owners of these areas to take accountability and ownership for their risks and their controls. And CSAs is a great way, without being too invasive, because you don't have to go into a system and try and find out where to look. It's immediately presented to you. These are your controls. Please rate your controls. Why did you rate them like this? Attach evidence if you have to. Raise an action plan if you have to. And the good news there is also, if you look down, it's called moderated action plan. So we've now got the situation in version 11.2 that if if I, as the control owner, raise an action plan, nothing is live yet in BarnOwl until the vote is closed, or if you've got a review, until it's been reviewed and that action plan has been accepted, and also that the vote has been finalized and complete. Then, only then does it update into the actual BarnOwl database. Another big thing there is the recurrent start date and end date. So what we mean there is that we often had clients, and this applies to control self-assessments as well as action plans, as well as surveys, actually, where in BarnOwl you could always say, look, I want this action plan to recur, but it would start almost immediately. Now you can say, I want it to recur, but I'm setting it up now, but I want it to start recurring on the 1st of June, for example, and I want it to end on the 31st of May next year. So it's a bit like when you book a recurring invite in your calendar. You can set how many occurrences you want and from when you want to start it. The proxy votes, it's another big thing, is what often happens is guys get the votes, and they might need to give that control vote to someone else, or that person has moved to another department, for example, and now the owner of that control is someone else. So you are able to get someone else to take over the ownership of that particular control vote. Risk self-assessment voting. It's not quite as powerful as control self-assessment because it doesn't have the reviewer ability in it. I think that was from early design. It might become a requirement eventually, but most people use CSAs. But the RSA is also very, very useful. And then key indicators, as I mentioned, we've introduced financial periods. We've also introduced targets and reassessment rules. So what that means is in the past, whenever a key indicator changed, it would trigger a reassessment of whatever it was linked to. So key control indicators are linked to controls. So if a key indicator went from, let's say, 10 to 9, value of 10 to value of 9, no matter what change it had, it would trigger a reassessment of that control, little exclamation mark, and say, please look at this control. Now we've put into the system that only, for example, if the threshold moves, in other words, you move from a red key indicator or from a yellow key indicator to a red key indicator, now you can set rules that only then must it trigger a reassessment of that control or that risk. And then again, key indicator periods. So you can actually say, look, we now have got running from, say, April to May. These are key indicators, almost like periods, year, day, month, that kind of thing. And what's also good is you never know when someone has finalized their key indicator values. So don't forget, with key indicators, you can put owners against key indicators. So if I have to monitor something, I would get an email, or I can look at BarnOwl and say, oh, I've got to fill in a key indicator for my sales targets for the end of Feb, for example. So, but let's say that I filled them in yesterday, the 28th of Feb, and today I think, oh, hell, and by the way, today is a leap year, can you believe it? The 29th of Feb. So there'll be some lucky guys out there that might be invited to get married. The 29th of, and today, the 29th of Feb, I would, then I think, oh no, man, our sales just come in today. I mean, that would be nice. So I've got to go and update my key indicator register. I've got to, and so I only when I tick on finalize, does it actually then really write that value. It now says, well, that's the final That's the final value for February, is actually the 29th of February. Or even if it was the 1st of March that I did it, I can now tick it to say it's finalized, or my manager can tick it and say it's now finalized. And only they've got permissions to take the finalization tick off. I'd have to phone my manager and say, listen, please can you untick this so that I can just update it. But it prevents people from going back in time and changing the key indicator values. So there's a finalization period, a bit like an accounting system. Action plan recurrence, same as the, I'll show that to you. And then, as I mentioned, we've done a lot in the reporting. The BarnOwl web custom queries built into the BarnOwl web. There's SSRS, there's the risk Power BI dashboard, there's the voting Power BI dashboard, there's surveys and compliance Power BI dashboards, and there are extensive audit Power BI dashboards. That are included in BarnOwl at no cost. Obviously, there's a bit of setup, so you have to have Power BI Desktop, which is at this stage free. There are a lot of organizations that have Power BI servers, so that's more advanced, and you can publish reports. But essentially, from a BarnOwl perspective, these Power BI dashboards are accessible to you, and the SSRS is also accessible to you. It's actually called SQL Server Integration Services. It is a setting in SQL Server, but it's also that's free reporting that you can get directly off the BarnOwl database using SSRS, and those are very presentable type tabular type reports, whereas Power BI are more graphical, drill down, interactive type reports. Just a quick one on that. The Power BI dashboards do not take into account BarnOwl permissions. So we do have a mechanism to do it, but the Power BI really is designed for an administrator to be able to create the dashboard that you would maybe like to send to people in a PDF format. If you gave the Power BI dashboard to one of your users, they would be able to see if the information is not that they can't update anything. So if the information is not confidential or anything like that, you can quite easily give them the Power BI, and then they can drill down anywhere within the system. So what I'm saying is there are no permissions built in to the Power BI dashboards, whereas SSRS takes into account the permissions, the same as BarnOwl's permissions. If I can only see this unit, then that's all I'll be able to pull a report for. And BarnOwl Web with custom queries also takes into account the permissions in BarnOwl. So I'm going to jump across to the system now. As I say, I've got slides which we can that basically take you through every area that I'm going to talk about, with some pop-ups and things like that. So, but let me rather show you the system. So the first thing I'm going to cover are surveys. I'm just going to go through surveys, questionnaires, CSAs, risk self-assessments, and key indicators, essentially the changes that we've made to version 11.2. This is BarnOwl Desktop, the old name BarnOwl Rich, but BarnOwl Desktop. And I'm just going to go to the voting template just to show you that not much has changed here. But if I open, for example, I'm just going to go here quickly. If I open a survey, it has changed a little bit, because you'll see, because this survey has been already opened, you get this kind of window where you can view an administrator can basically view where they are with the survey at the moment, that kind of thing. But essentially, just to give you an idea, when you first create a survey, you can import the survey, the category, the subcategory, the questions. And then what's changed a lot here is that you can add what we call answer details, and you can actually put in as the different answers on the survey and text relating to it. It'll make more sense when I show you the survey. So this is still an administrator setting up the survey, and you go next and you say who wants to actually answer the survey. Do we have a reviewer? So at the moment I've got someone called Preparer IA that would answer the survey, and I'm logged in as the manager, and I'm going to be doing the reviewing. I'll come back to recurrent settings. I spoke about that you can then have this as a recurring survey that goes out. Could be a compliance survey that goes out every quarter or every month, for example. And you've then got the idea of the status, can either be created, active, suspended, closed. And as I mentioned, when you close an update to BarnOwl at the end, that's when any action plans will become live, or and the results of the survey or the CSA will be written as final into the BarnOwl database. You'll see here that you can have for the person answering the survey, they've got a from date and a to date. They get email reminders, notifications. There's a link directly to the survey or the CSA. They work the same way. And then there's also the reviewer can, at the 29th of Feb, when the reviewer can go and review before then, but things might change. So essentially the survey is no longer open at the end of the 29th of Feb, but I've got, as a reviewer, have got until the 8th of March to basically go through the survey or the CSA, make any changes, comment, and possibly reopen the survey for longer if there are no results. If the voter didn't get to it, you can reopen the survey for them or basically change the dates. So that's the survey. If I just look, while we're in the desktop app, I just want to show you the setup here. Here is the a CSA setup, the same kind of thing. You can track vote, who's voted. You can track the results of the vote. Who voted what, depending on whether it's anonymous or not. But you have to be careful about changing the configuration of the vote, because this particular vote has already gone out, meaning I've already submitted it. But you can still make changes. But if you change it too much, then the user's going to get a bit confused. This form hasn't changed much. You still decide what someone can do. Are you going to allow action plans? Is the vote anonymous? Are you going to allow comments? Well, that's and then you've also got the ability to say, depending on who the vote goes to and which business unit, are you going to select all the controls in that particular business unit? Are you going to select only control owners? In other words, everyone will receive, if they're a control owner on that control, they will get the particular vote. You can select specific controls. And then at the bottom here, you can set up different kinds of fields or columns, really, that you want to show on the vote. Now, with the new version 11.2, the user can actually add their own columns if they want to, or their own fields. But these are the standard ones that you, as the administrator, can say, I would like, when the guy opens up the vote, he will see these particular fields. The same thing, prepare a reviewer. There was also rules around here. You can still set the same kind of rules, where you can say force an action plan if the control is partially adequate, force or if it's ineffective, force a comment if it's partially effective. And there's also the sort order on the voting form. But again, you'll see now when I get there that the actual voter can decide how he wants to sort things and look at things. So, and this is this configure recurrence. I just wanted to show you this, that you'll see what we've changed now is this ability to have a start date there where it says recurrence range and essentially an end date. So we didn't have the start date and end date before, which is very, very useful. RSA, same kind of thing, same, as I say, RSA is almost the same. All risks, risk by title. You can vote on residual risk, residual likelihood, or on inherent and on the inherent ratings as well. So let me show you what the interface looks like. I'm going to go into BarnOwl Web now. So I think anyone that has used BarnOwl Web or the version 11, this is the landing page. Sorry, I've got a lot of kind of junk in here as well, but the landing page gives you a heads up. Here are some items that you may need your attention. So it really shows you which action plans are for you and their status. In other words, these are action plans where my name is against them. It would also show you, you'd never see this many, it's a dummy database, but you would see which surveys or CSAs or any votes that are on your plate to attend to. And you would also see the key risk indicators that you need to respond to or capture data for. And it'll only show you the key indicators that, not like this one where it's showing you a December and a November and an October, because those would have already been signed off. It's a dummy database here. I would only see one or two key indicators, maybe for February, and I would then be able to click on that and go straight to them. But I'm going to go to my BarnOwl, so you can, within all these menus, you can customize as the user what are your favorite views or your favorite menu options. So you see I've got risks by unit, my action plans, my votes, key indicators. I'm going to go through some of this. Just as a summary, if you wanted to look at risks by unit, it's very easy just to tick whatever units you want or where you've got permissions. And for example, open up a risk. This is what I was talking about, risk on a page. So you'll see I've got this particular risk. You can see assets not categorized correctly, and it immediately shows me, if I just expand here, it's still loading, what the controls are. And, so it's very easy to see what is linked to this particular risk. And the things we've changed as well is you can now go and have a look and basically see which the votes and which votes were done against this particular risk or the control. And wherever you are, you've got this, it shows you essentially on this risk, which you'll see at the top there, assets are not categorized correctly on the unit assets. It shows you what's linked. So I can see I've got some controls linked, I've got key indicators linked, and I've got my risk rating votes linked as well, and it'll show you which votes or risk self-assessments were done. So on one page, it's very easy to get into almost anything you need to if you've got permissions and see what is linked to the particular risk. So it's not the drill, it's not within, like the BarnOwl desktop app gets quite overwhelming. This is quite nice in that it's clean cut, and you can easily get to go and have a look at a risk and all its details, but in a coordinated way. So if I go to now my votes, I'm going to start there. And I'm starting so the major change we've made is on surveys. So I've got a risk maturity survey that's been sent to me. So I'm now one of the voters on this risk maturity survey. And you'll see I'm presented with a question or the category, governance and strategy. Here are the subcategories, 1.1. And then this happens to only have one question for this category, but 1.1 is the question, there's 1.2. And we've set this up just to have different and you'll see also you've now got what we call, these are radio buttons. Previously you can have drop down boxes as well, but it's the radio buttons work really nicely. But a major change is this little I button. So what I can now see is if I need to vote or answer this survey, I can have a look and see, what is this question all about? I can also, if the administrators added documents, you can put template documents for someone to say, well, what do you mean by there's an approved risk management strategy, including goals and accountability? What are some example documents of that? So it's a great way of not only just sending out surveys, but getting the audience well educated to be able to answer the survey. And then what's really nice is for each answer here, the initial, the basic, the established, we then have got the ability where you now as the administrator can go and put in text to say, what does it mean to be established? Don't just rate yourself as established. What does that mean? And at the same time, you can also go and capture a comment, or the responder can open up and attach evidence. So if you say, well, I am established in this risk strategy, well, then please go and attach a little bit of evidence so that we believe you. So this is really, we're very excited about this. This is a very powerful tool to be able to send out any kind of survey to your user base. And don't forget, the responding to these surveys within your organization is free to unlimited users. So if I go back to my votes, I'm now just going to show you what a questionnaire looks like. That's another nice thing in BarnOwl. On any of the grids, I call them grids or pages like this, you can just type in any text. So it could be your risk register, your control register, anything. And by typing in that question that I've done, it searches it. Basically, you can see it puts filters on every single column to say, search for anywhere across all these fields that are on the screen, search for the word questionnaire or quest. So I'm going to open that. I think it's this one. So here's an audit satisfaction questionnaire. That's and you'll see. So it's also the ability to, was adequate notice received prior to the start date. This might be for the auditee to fill in how he sees how the audit progressed. I've said no, there wasn't adequate notice given to me about an audit. And then it's basically got conditional fields as well. So if I said yes, you'll see that those fields go away. If I say no, I didn't get adequate notice, then I get a date, these other subsequent conditional questions. So this questionnaire functionality is really, really powerful, and it's nicely structured also into categories, subcategories, well, basically categories, and it handles any kind of field from drop down to check boxes to checklists. These are called checklists, and I can move things left and right as to what I've selected or not. So I think maybe this is one of BarnOwl's best kept secrets. I don't think many people use questionnaires, but they're also really, really useful. I'm going to go back to my votes. So I'm going to now type, just to give you an idea on these, if I just said clear filters, you'd see that. But on all our registers, you've got the ability to choose which columns you want to see, what filters you want to put on that particular column, or this generic search. But the columns, and then you can obviously, you can drag, and on any risk, on any registers, you can drag and drop, or I could I better not fiddle now too much in a demo, but I can group and do all sorts of things so that I can and save favorite views. So when you've grouped things and moved things around and adjusted the column width to what you want, then you can actually go and save favorite views and also share these favorite views with other users. So that then becomes useful because then you, as a team, are all working with a common view. If I now type questionnaire in here and I go and I look for that one. I've done questionnaire, sorry. CSA. So let's just start with the CSA. I'll do CSA and I'm going to go into this one. So you'll see I'm logged in at the top right-hand corner here as the manager. So I've already sent this. I didn't want to, it'll take too long to show you the whole process of preparer, manager. I've just called it preparer, or the voter and the reviewer, basically. So, but I can always have a look and say vote tracking. I'm the reviewer here, so I can see that the preparer, I just called it a preparer, it's really the voter. He finished voting, or she finished voting on the 27th of the 2nd, and submitted. That vote could still be opened up until the last day of voting, which I think was today. But the manager, being me at the moment, or the reviewer, can still go and look and at the vote. But that is the reason why there's this little balancing scale, because you can now go quite easily in BarnOwl and say, well, this particular control, let's just go and have a look what different what the voters voted. So you can see that this preparer, then you can have multiple voters. It's you might have more than one person's input on this control. But I can see that this person, the preparer, rated this control as partially effective. They didn't capture an action plan, and but they did put a comment in there called preparer comment #1. That's what they've put in there. I could then say I disagree with this as the reviewer, for example, and say, no, I think this is actually ineffective. So you can, and if I then decide, well, no, actually, let me go and see again what all the voters said, I could go there, and you've got this use average. So it's not taking, it doesn't take my vote now into account. It set it back to partially effective because it took all the voters that are on this and set that to partially effective. But I'm going to make it ineffective. And then the idea also is that I can go and add. You can see here that I can go and capture an action plan against this, or in this particular case, there already is an action plan, and I can choose as the reviewer to either select this as, so essentially what happens is that the voters could raise moderated action plans. In other words, they say, we need this action plan, but as the reviewer, I would either give it the thumbs up or the not thumbs up. So the thumbs up, it's a toggle. So this is the green means that I've given it the thumbs up. If I deselect it, it means that it won't actually become a living action plan in the system. Although this is pretty academic because this one already is a live action plan, whereas this one that you'll see here that is a moderated action plan, means it is not live yet. And only if I, as a reviewer, give it the thumbs up, will it become a live action plan when the vote is closed. Hope I'm not confusing everyone, but it's pretty powerful because we've got the same. The problem always was you raise these action plans and they immediately become live. So we're making similar changes. Audit's got the same kind of thing. Sometimes you have to wait right till the end to raise an action plan because the action plans become live immediately. You've got the ability to attach evidence. So why did you rate something the way you've rated it? Please attach evidence. That could be, well, don't think you might do some sampling and you might attach evidence. And the other thing that you've got here is then the ability to add comments as well. So I can see that the voter added that comment, but I could also go and add, as the reviewer, my own comment here as well. So you've got comments against that. Again, you've got the ability, this is what I mentioned, is you can add any other fields that you want to add to the field, so that when the administrator set this vote up or the CSA up, it comes across with the votes that I've actually, the fields that are sent as a default, as a standard, but I can chop and change. If I wanted to see the reference, for example, I could say, well, I want to actually look at the control reference, which I don't seem to be able to see. Probably a reference. Okay, so I could just add a reference, for example, and I could drag that to there. And I actually like sorting by reference. So it's and that then the system remembers. If I go out and come back in, for example, it'll remember what I've put there and how I've last viewed the screen. So we've also got the ability to export. So you can export straight to PDF, but we've also got these are these kind of built-in reports now that we've got in BarnOwl. So it's quite easy. I like them a lot. It's very easy to create almost a report of almost any register like this, and you can export those to PDF or and actually filter them and do things like that. I'm going to show you more about that just a bit later. So that's CSAs. If I go back to my votes, and I'm just going to put an RSA in here, just to give you an idea what a risk self-assessment looks like. So you'll see it doesn't have the reviewer functionality, but you've got the risks. I've only voting on the residual impact and residual likelihood. It puts the colors in. Again, I can go and attach linked documents, and I can go and put comments in. Something I didn't show you on the previous votes is what's really nice as well, is I can click on this and drill down into the detail of that risk or of that control. So now what's happened is, instead of looking at it on one, just in a flat data sheet, I've drilled into this the risk that I want to vote on, called assets are not categorized correctly, and I can essentially go down here and have a look at all the details, as well as see any kind of details that is linked to this particular risk or this particular control. And then I can either vote in here like this, here's where I can vote, because I can vote residual impact or residual likelihood. So it's the same thing. Or after reading all that, I can just go back here and I can vote here. But it's quite nice that you can then go and have a look at the detail of that risk or the detail of that control. Okay, so what I've covered so far is I've shown you the web interface for surveys, for questionnaires, for control self-assessments, and for risk self-assessments. One thing I didn't show you, just if I go back to a CSA, my quick way of getting to my CSAs, is the proxy. So if we look here, you can look at the vote details. So as the votes are, I can kind of see more information about this vote and who's voting and how far I am with the vote. I can have a look at vote tracking. So you can see that the preparer has submitted this and the managers, that's being me, partially submitted. And I can also then, this is quite a powerful thing, is the proxy vote. So you can say, well, actually, I'm no longer in this department. I need to send this vote to someone else, for example. And they will then get this vote and all the voting rights will be transferred across to them. When the system does close and update, it doesn't take it does change the control owner for the period of the vote, because you might be away on leave, for example, but still be the control owner when you come back. And so it doesn't actually physically permanently change the control owner. You would need to do that. The administrator would do that. What's been voted, what's not voted, assign proxy, control model, and then you would submit this, and it would show submitted. And then once it's been submitted, the administrator can go and update it into BarnOwl, go and view all the results, or you can, as a reviewer, you can do it from the web interface. You can close it and update it to BarnOwl. I'm going to move on to my key indicators. So key indicators is where we've done a lot of work on key indicators. So I've happened to tick the assets. I've got a key indicator there in this particular business unit. You could obviously tick multiple business units and I would see all the key indicators, in the different areas. These are key indicators that I've got permissions to see, not necessarily the key indicators I own. That's why we've got this my key indicators, but like my action plans. But if I now open this key indicator, I've created this key indicator. I just wanted to show you this, that we've done quite a lot of work here. One is on the target setup. You can set up your targets like you could in BarnOwl, but previously, but you can copy targets down. So I'm saying on this key indicator, for example, we've got a purchase without a purchase order, and the target is 0. If the target is met, that means 0. If it's slightly under target, it means on a monthly basis we've got one purchase order. Maybe you do this based on value, and if you've got 3 purchase orders in a month that have basically you've purchased an asset and you don't have a purchase order, you got a big problem. So you will see now that I've already captured some data. I captured for January, there were 3 purchase orders that went through that didn't have purchase orders, assets, and in February so far, there have been 5. Now, what you can do is you can also, I think, as you would know, is you can do what's the word? I've gone blank. Descending or ascending targets. So in other words, the lower it is, the better it is, or the higher it is, the better it is. If it was sales, then the higher it is, the better it is. But what we've added to this is the ability now, as I mentioned, is to set what we call reassessment configuration rules. So I only want this control. This by the way, K is a KCI. It's a key control indicator. In other words, it's linked to the control. I only want the control owner to get an email to say, listen, something's not right with this control. If we are significantly below target. So in other words, if this key indicator changes, key control indicator changes, I only want the control owner to receive an email to go and say, must he re-rate this control according in terms of its effectiveness based on the key control indicator. Now, all these key indicators can be linked to external systems as well. So we work closely with Arbutus software, which is data analytics that'll go in for continuous risk monitoring. So analyzing millions of transactions, and it will then automatically come up with the exceptions and trigger reassessments based on these. So it's not a manual process of capturing key risk indicators or key control indicators. It is possible to write clever data analytics that then interface with BarnOwl to update the values in here. So that is something worth bearing in mind. But at the same time, you can, for example, have the I can go into this manually as well if I'm the owner of this key indicator. You'll always see what it's linked to. I can see how it's linked to this control, or these are the things that it's linked to, and I'm gonna get to the input values. So this is essentially setting up a key indicator, and this same key indicator could be different in different business units. So this is in the assets unit under the Joburg area, but you could have different key indicator thresholds per business unit. So if I go to my key indicators, there are different ways to get to things, but what's nice with my key indicators is this would show you, and mine looks really hectic, but it wouldn't be like this. It shows you where you've got key indicators that have not been finalized for this month yet. So because we're in February, I know I've got some junk in here because I have got some February ones, but you'll see I've also got January ones. But it would show you any key indicator that belongs to you that needs a value and needs a value this month. You'll see these periods now. As I mentioned, you've now added periods. The reason there are 3 numbers there, because I was a bit confused myself, because I thought, well, 2024 and there are only 12 months in the year, is because I wasn't thinking our key indicators can be on a daily basis. So it can actually go up to 365 days, or actually you could go up to 1,000 in this particular case, but basically it's daily as the minimum. So you can have key indicators that are being tracked every day, every month, like this one at the moment is a monthly one, and you can set up key indicators to be quarterly, biannually, annually. Another thing on key indicators that you can set up is whether they're cumulative or one-off. So if you are a municipality, for example, and you've got a target, I mean, I'm using probably a very basic example, but you need to install 1,000 taps this year. You can then set up your key indicators where you still want to measure them every quarter, for example, but you should have achieved, for 1,000, you need to kind of do 250 taps or water outlets per quarter. So you can make it, but you can make that the total for the year is 1,000. So you can use cumulative key control indicators, or you can use what we call most recent, which is a bit like this one. So if I actually click on that, it'll say, well, you'll see here we've got it's a monthly key indicator, and what it means is that if I now capture a key indicator value, you'll see I captured one, I captured the value 5, but now, and I captured that a few days ago. But now what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to say, well, it's now the 29th of Feb. I'm going to actually capture the key indicator value of 6. We've actually had 6. I found 6 purchase orders now for this month that have not that I can't find for assets that have been purchased. And you will see that it's got the dates because it now knows what the periods are. Another thing we've added is the ability to add documents. So you can attach the evidence or the results of where did you get attach the 6 purchase orders, or the lack of purchase orders. If this was linked to Arbutus, for example, the system automatically attaches the the evidence of what's failed. And what Arbutus does, or what you can do, is you can say, well, I actually, in this particular key indicator, I reviewed 100 purchases. The total value of the purchases was 990,000, for example. The exception count I found was 6. I found 6 things that are wrong, and the value of that, for example, was 300,000. So you can do that, but if it's linked to Arbutus and that, these values are actually automatically updated. Then I can save and close. So you'll notice now that it actually does keep like a track of what I've done, but because it's set to the most recent value, if I then go back out here and have a look at that, you would see that on this menu, on this here, I would see what the values are. No, I'll get to that. Let's just go back here. I'd go to my key indicators, and then when I've finished with this my key indicator, for example, I can actually tick to say I've actually finished for the month. And you can do this on a bulk kind of process as well, where the manager can, so it's not necessarily me that would tick this, it would actually be the manager that goes through and says, okay, well, the end of February's come and gone. You can't go and change your key indicator values now. So, moving on to this, then you would see that if I looked now at the key indicator values in this particular unit, I've got, oh, I must have set it to cumulative, by the way. You can see that 6 that I've just added, that 6 that I've just put in, has added to the previous 5. So I've set this key indicator to cumulative. You can also set it to most recent, which means that it would have just overwritten the 6 of the 5. But that's actually a good example of one that's cumulative. But because it's now finalized as well, it's sitting as 11, and I can see my periods, February. And what's really useful on this key indicator value period is that we've got this ability here, quite a nice report here. So if you want to get it, okay, it's not great when you okay, that didn't happen yesterday. Might be because I've updated this, but you generally get a report here. There it is. There, I don't know what happened there. But here is an example of an export from BarnOwl into a report format of all your key indicators. The reason I've got all these purchase orders, it's showing me my periods all the way, down. But I could, whatever I filter, for example, on whatever I filter in the register is what I will see on that report. So hopefully I haven't confused anyone, but my key indicators is the easy thing to get to. It'll show you which key indicators. You'll see that one is gone now that I have just filled in because it was ticked as finalized. If my manager, then I said, oh no, I've made a mistake. Please, Mr. Manager, please go and open it again. I could then go as the manager here, go to input values, and I could untick that if you've got permissions and save and close. And that would now be open. So I'm acting almost as 2 people here now. That would now be open again for the owner of this key indicator to go and update the value. But eventually you want to close these key indicators so that they are fixed, and that's what it was at the end of the month. So that's just my action plans, just that I would just, so that I've really now taken you through the key indicator changes. And as I say, they really do bring risk management to life. Just to give you an idea, this is I don't know what happened there. It might be. I haven't seen that before. Let me just go back in here. My action plans. Let me just go here. So I say there's a lot of, not making excuses, but there's a lot of junk in this database. We tested it flat out, but it's in our environment, in our testing environment. But if I go to, okay, might be something related to the action plan. All I wanted to show you is that we've got that same recurrence where you can say an action plan is a recurring action plan, start dates, end date, which I showed you on the CSA. It's the same thing. So if I go now to reporting, if we jump back to what I wanted to show you, just to give you an idea, well, before we leave this, we've got the ability here. These are these built-in queries, custom queries. So this is really nice, and we're going to build on these as well. So within the web interface, you've got the ability now to run a particular report or risk register. For example, you can export risk registers, but at the moment it just shows you what's in the register. But you've got now the ability here to say, well, I want to actually pull. Let's just go to where we were. We're just going to tick assets, for example. So it's all permission based. I can select the unit, and I can say, well, and you can see I could have selected multiple units, and I want to run this particular. So it does a custom query, and we can change whatever, so we add this, and if clients want different queries, as I say, we would quote you to create different queries, but this just showing me my risks, it's showing me my controls, it's showing me my contributing factors, if there were any. Let me maybe go back here quickly. I just want to go to parameters. I'm going to select the units. I'm going to select Joburg HR because I know that I've got some contributing factors in there. Joburg, turn assets off. Joburg HR. Screen's a bit small. Run. So this, for example, is my kind of favorite unit to demo on. It's got, if you go further down here, you can sort and search. You can create almost any fields you want in this now, and then export that to what we call a register report. So what it'll do is exactly what I'm seeing on my screen, gets now into a report format, which you could then send out in PDF format or Excel format, which is quite useful. It's still not merging cells, but we will eventually get this merged cells, and that's really why we're still using SSRS extensively, because that there we can get very, very customized reports. But these are also great. Any kind of custom queries, which are excellent. Just while we're there, just to give you an idea, so SSRS, SQL Server Reporting, would create this kind of report in any kind of format that you want. So you'll see, it's got the objectives, the risk title. This has been exported to Excel directly from SSRS, the risk category, the contributing factors, the consequences, the inherent rating, the controls, whether they link to a contributing factor or link directly to the risk, we're showing them. So if we look at nearly everyone, most people want to see a register or an export that looks like this. In other words, what are the risks? What are the contributing factors? What are the consequences? What are the controls? What are the action plans? what's the start date, the due date, and what status as what are the progress notes of the action plan. So this is a standard SSRS report that's available to everyone, and it doesn't cost anything. It does require a little bit of setup, which we can help you with. Sorry, I'm just watching the time now. See, I've almost run out, so I'm gonna stop now in a few minutes. Just to give you an idea, we've got. I'm not going to go too much into this, but BarnOwl now has extensive Power BI dashboards. These are running directly off the database. So if I clicked on refresh, it takes the latest data in that database and updates it. You got and all of these you can, if you get to know BarnOwl, get to know Power BI, you can drill up, you can drill down, you can. Nearly all of these are also interactive. So as I click on here, it filters all the other pages. You can also export the particular view you're looking at across all the pages. You can export into PDF. If you wanted to send a graphic report that's not a static graphic report, but what's really nice is you can really analyze data here. There's inherent residue. You can see how many dashboards we've got here: qualitative, quantitative, spider, top risks either by unit or top risks from highest to lowest across the organization. Control dashboards, per area with drill down into where you've got ineffective controls. The action plans are really powerful. I mean, I could go and have a look at exactly which action plans per user, how many overdue ones I've got, how many action plans I've got in the system, status. There's the loss events. You've got the whole incident management part of BarnOwl. Risk trends. So it looks really busy. I like the colors. You could go and select a particular, risk, and it'll update the table at the bottom. Control trends. How my controls moving across the different periods. Key indicators. Again, we spoke about key indicators. Different periods now. How the actuals. Key indicators tracking against the targets. I like this particular one where you can see different months basically, or different financial periods, and how they tracked trends, actuals. It's extensive. Voting. I mentioned we got CSAs, so I can say, well, there's, for example, the Joburg votes. I can see who voted, what the percentage compliance was, and on a lot of these we've got what we call drill through. So especially on the audit dashboard, we've got the ability to drill through from that high level vote into the vote results. I can see how this manager voted these controls, and how the preparer and which action plans are created, and whether it's in moderation mode or not. If I look at the surveys, here the surveys I showed you, it's all totally interactive, basically compliance surveys, answer summaries, how many yeses, how many no's, or strongly agrees, survey drill down. So again, if it's the category of the survey, the subcategory, the questions. This one is the compliance one. So because we've got certain questions linked to now this, what we call the CRMPs, I could click on that. Non-compliance to security measures on integrity and confidentiality. And I can see when I sent out a survey with questions, which ones were answered yes and which ones were answered no. So you can see whether you've now, your rating of your risks, for example, 4 and a 2 there, which is an 8 residual risk, but we've only got 75% compliance in terms of the questions that were sent against that particular risk. Last, and I'm then going to stop, this is the audit. Audit is extensive. We've got showing you the projects by rating, by status, by units. The fine, all of this is interactive, and all of it also has drill throughs into the detail. So I don't want to go through too much. There's almost a focus around projects. That's dashboard 1. And there's a focus around findings. You know, what are the findings per area of my business? Which ones are issues? Which ones are high? If I click on that, it's also showing me which processes, because there's a correlation between the business units and the processes, where they're high, where they're low, or where have I got serious findings. Which ones are repeat findings, status of the findings, are they agreed in principle, and priorities. So yeah, I'm going to stop now and ask Cheryl to please open the floor and take some questions. I see it's 10:19. So please feel free to ask some questions. Cheryl, are you there? I see it looks like people are still locked.
No, you can unmute yourself. You can just put up your hand if you have a question.
Paul, go for it.
Jonathan, thank you for the presentation. I just have 2 questions from my side. When you're looking at the CSA on the web interface, how the columns are set up. So like process part, if you want to change that in order to get like a set sort of view sent out to each CSA user, is it possible to do that, or would each user have to do that on their side?
That's a good question. At the moment, each user would have to do that. But I don't know if they're favorite views. I can't remember. In other words, you could set up a favorite view and share that with users, but they won't order. They'll get presented with a standard view like I showed, and then I think, I mean, Ali might be on the call.
Let me chip in there, Jono. So
thanks.
Cole, hi, Cole. What Jono showed you on the desktop app is you can select certain fields to be visible by default for all the users, but the column ordering, that is if a user wants to change the column order, that would be done per user.
Yes, okay. The only reason why I'm asking this question is we'd like to set it up similar to the old version, what our users were seeing. So they started off with process part, and then it went to control title, control procedure, etc., etc. So currently we aren't able to, each user will need to set that up, because I'm just thinking that it may, although the information is the same, it may be a bit confusing. We have quite a few users completing the CSAs. But I mean, that's something we can sort of chat about further offline. And then, sorry, the second question just has to do with regards to the proxy that you can in the CSA. Is this proxy linked to the information that's shown on the back end of BarnOwl? And that's I'm not sure how each company is, but in our case, it's linked to Active Directory, and then they can just assign this. Will the system then send an automated email to the new user? Or if you can just give a little bit more detail on how that proxy reassignment works.
Okay, Ali, thanks.
Yeah, so Jono, I don't know if you could just share your screen and show him that the picture that you sent me yesterday with the proxy.
Yeah, let me do that quickly. Just I'll share my screen now.
So while you're busy doing that, Jono, Cole, the set of users that you can assign the proxy to, that is linked to the BarnOwl database. So if the vote was initially assigned to me and I'm not available, I would search that drop down for Jonathan, and I would assign to him, and Jonathan would be a user in the database. And then now when you click that assign proxy button, there's the whole description of actually what goes on during this process. And yeah, like Jono's expanded there, that's your Active Directory.
Okay.
all the users that have been imported into the BarnOwl database from Active Directory.
Okay, and you said this will just be temporary. It doesn't change the control owner, right?
That's correct. So basically, on a control vote, there's an option for you to vote where you are a control owner. So the proxy voter might not be a control owner, or be on the same set of controls that you are on. So what it will do is it will temporarily add the proxy voter as a control owner until the vote process has been completed. And then shortly thereafter, through the BarnOwl management service, the proxy voter would then be removed as a control owner. So your control owners, the original ones, will always maintained.
Okay, and then does the system send an email notification to this new proxy voter?
That's correct. So if you look at the second bullet point, an assignment
Yeah.
email is sent to the proxy voter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, just one more thing, Ali. Is it possible to assign a proxy voter on the back end if you're a rich client? If you have the rich client access?
So unfortunately not. I think
Okay.
from there you would have to remove the voter and then add another.
Yeah, you'll have to reassign everything for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. We'll get back to you on that, on your first question, where I hear what you're saying. It's a different. You basically want to see the CSA the way it was in the order that you basically had it in the old system.
Yeah,
It's not.
it would just be used like handy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good.
Perfect. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Clear as mud.
Sorry, Yazid just put a question in the chat box. Just to confirm, a web user does not need a BarnOwl license, but just needs to be in the Active Directory.
So just to answer that, we've got two kinds of web license. There's what we call the open web license. That is a free license, and you don't need a BarnOwl license for that. And what an open web license allows you to do is to respond to votes. In other words, CSAs, RSAs, respond to a survey, respond or answer a survey, answer a questionnaire, and maintain your own action plans. When I say update your action plans, what you can't do with a free license is create new risks, create new controls, create new action plans. Essentially, the open license is to update things that have been sent to you. But if you are a champion, like a risk champion, and you need access to your risk register and you want to edit those risks, add controls, change things, add new action plans for someone else or yourself, there you need what we used to call it a BarnOwl Lite license. It will now be the full BarnOwl web license, which does have a fee attached to it. You do require a license for that. Hopefully that makes sense. There is on our website quite a nice view of the licenses. I won't go in there now, but you can actually, if you go to the website, you click on licenses, it'll show you essentially what functionality you get depending on what kind of license you've got. It's quite a nice matrix. Yeah. Any other questions?
Maybe I can just add another comment on CSAs and voting in general. Jono did demonstrate the vote tracking page, and that's where you can see all the voters and their submission status. And what we've done there is you are able to click an email icon next to the user, which then sends the assignment mail again to that voter. So if the voter is not answering the vote, you can send that reminder email. And I believe you can also put in a custom message on top of that reminder email at the same time. So the example here, Cole, would be that if the reviewer knows that a proxy ownership needs to be assigned, then what you could do is you could send it, you could click that button and then send the mail to that user and then put in a custom message there to say, please reassign to the proxy voter. Yeah. So this is just a useful bit of functionality to drive votes completion.
Yeah.
I think that'll be very useful, especially if a reviewer has multiple control owners and maybe one hasn't responded, etc., and they haven't been able to review.
Yeah. All right. No more questions. Please feel free, by the way, to send through questions to Cheryl or to email us or BarnOwl support. Support at BarnOwl, I should say, .co.za. You know, you can ask questions there, or directly to Cheryl. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having so many people on this call. We're looking forward to you guys getting version 11.2 implemented. One last thing on that, if there are BarnOwl, the existing BarnOwl Lite users, it would be a good idea to have a training environment, a UAT environment. So I didn't go through my last couple of slides. I realized what I did have in the slide presentation. I'm just going to very quickly, I know time's up, but just so that you know what's coming. Here we go. Just bear with me, please. Just trying to get. So we'll maybe what we can do, Cheryl, is send this PowerPoint presentation. I don't know whether it'll be blocked. It's about 5 megs because it's got all the screenshots in it. But you know, those people that attended it will be on our website, but that'll only be next week. But just to get to the last few slides here. Here, you know, there is, we'll send this, you know, how do I upgrade to version 11? So it's got the whole kind of the process. I'm not going to go through it now, but step 1, have a look at the what's new document. Step 2, BarnOwl minimum requirements. Step 3, get hold of a client hub. But it is really a self-upgrade environment. But what we do say here is, ideally, you should have a UAT environment. Now, not every client of ours has a UAT environment, which stands for user acceptance testing. It's best to do that, especially because if you've got light users, current light users, and they get this new web interface, BarnOwl Web, it's a totally different interface. So they won't know how to use it. So you've got to, it would be best to put that in a UAT environment, train them up, get them trained, see if you need to ask us for further training. But you know, obviously we've got a lot of videos and things like that can help people. But you know, if you just suddenly update your production with us, it's going to be quite hectic for anyone that currently uses BarnOwl Lite. There are no changes really on BarnOwl Rich, or BarnOwl Desktop as we call it now, so that won't affect you. But any Lite users will get a shock when they see version 11 because it's a totally different interface. So we'll send this. There's also a lot of information, by the way, on our website. And if you go into the website and click on Client Hub, you will see, you know, FAQs. You'll also see technical resources, guides, you know, how to get BarnOwl upgraded. And I have also put in some links here as to how version 11 works. You know, in other words, the first version 11 with the risk registers and all that kind of thing. And also the Power BI and SSRS. We've got quite an extensive video recording and a write-up. It's good to look at the write-up, and then there's at the bottom of the write-up there's a recording. Now, when we go live with version 11.2, which will be hopefully next week. You know, we haven't made it available to everyone. Version 11.1 has been out for quite some time, but version 11.2 will be available next week, hopefully, or the week after. And this is what you will see in the what's new document. So 11.2.6, you'll probably see 11.2.7 because we're doing some minor little things. But it's quite a nice summary of exactly what's been done. We will eventually have the online help links here, but that's a huge task. So for now, we won't. If you look at the 11.1, we've got all the online help, but 11.2 will, but it still gives you a breakdown of exactly what's been done in version 11.2. So I think that'll help you. Any questions before we wrap up? Good. Thank you very much for your time, everyone, today. Thank you. And have a